It hasn't been this bad for real estate since 2001. You probably think I'm talking about affordability, or maybe you think I'm talking about a general consensus from everyone out there about whether or not real estate investing is even a good, sound strategy anymore. Maybe you think I'm talking about home values and that they're about to crash. Or you might think I was talking about realtors and all the noise and heat they're under with these commission lawsuits. I'm actually talking about interest rates. While they're now headed in the right direction, we don't know when the next bump in the road is going to come up and how big of a bump it's going to be. What we do know is that interest rates have been above 6.7% for 52 weeks. Rates have not been that high and stayed that high for that long since 2001. Now we know trends in real estate come and go. Remember the modern farmhouse trend? We know that real estate is a long game, and it is an excellent game to play for those who are patient. But this trend of higher for longer rates is probably going to have some lasting impacts on the course of real estate going forward. Trends with a year-long lifespan would more accurately be described as market shifts. So how does the future of real estate change after this kind of shift? The most obvious driver of real estate is interest rates, right? They impact every aspect of the market and every type of buyer. Even if you're extremely wealthy, a serial investor, current interest rates are shaping your strategy as they're shaping and playing a huge factor in the first-time homebuyer strategy. In different ways, certainly, but there's bearing on both. During the pandemic, we saw low interest rates fuel insane increases in home prices and contributed to historical rates of appreciation for homeowners and investors. And now we're seeing higher rates drive down mortgage activity. Home prices remained high due to demand, that's true, but financing certainly slowed. No one knows that better than your girl over here. But this blog isn't about my paychecks. If you were concerned about my well-being, though, let's for a second talk about PCE numbers that came out this morning. This is the Fed's preferred measure of inflation. So it typically has the potential to be market moving. The reading showed inflation cooled last month, and while it advanced year over year, it was the smallest gain we've seen so far this year. Real personal spending fell. We're getting this information on the heels of a report showing that economic growth slowed in the first quarter of 2024 as well. You'll also remember a weaker jobs report that recently came in. All of this information, when pieced together, tells the story of an economy that is moderating, not taking a shit, but no longer growing at unprecedented, unexplainable paces. Now, I'll still refrain from any spending sprees this weekend because it's only been about a month of good news from economic reports. And by good news, I do mean bad news, but bad news about the economy is good news for most of us who actually know how the economy feels for the consumer. Oh yeah, and it's also good news for interest rates, which is good news for the real estate market, which is the big, huge even component of our GDP that we all talk about all the time. So what happens next? Let's get back on track. Interest rates have the potential to cool. Yet, after staying high for so long, where do things go from here? I'm actually going to refrain from pretending that I have a crystal ball. If you've read my interest rate projections at the end of 2023 and at the end of 2022, you know that making predictions usually doesn't go so well for me. So let's instead talk about how I would use this higher for longer market shift in my favor. If I were a buyer, I would do two things. First, sharpen my focus on opportunities. Mortgage applications are down again. This means your competition is getting frustrated with interest rates and a lack of inventory. If you stay the course, you can pick up a property right now and then experience something very similar to those who purchased before interest rates dropped in 2020. Do you think they sat around crying when they purchased, that they sat around crying because they purchased when rates were 5% and now rates are 2%? Hardly. If they loved their house, they refinanced that shit. Wait, Shivani, what if they had to buy a smaller house because interest rates had an impact on their buying power and now they could afford something better? Listen, they bought a house, not got sent to prison. If they wanted a bigger house and they could afford more now because of interest rates, guess what they did? They bought the better house. Everyone, whether they were happy in their house or not happy in their house, whether they were an investor or just a homeowner providing shelter for their family, was celebrating the appreciation gains that were happening each month as prices in their neighborhood went up. Second thing I would do as a buyer right now, I would get very intentional about my spending. Now, I'm not telling you to go live a frugal life. I'm just saying be aware, hyper aware of where your money is, where it goes every month, and what you want long term. What is your goal? Stay engaged with the financial news and look for opportunities, investment opportunities even outside of real estate. I get it that we've been telling you that a recession is coming and millionaires are made in recessions, and we've been telling you to hang tight since 2020, and it's yet to materialize. I don't know what comes next. Maybe it's a recession, maybe it's some other shift. It will hold opportunities, but only for those who are financially ready to capitalize on them. Now, as a realtor, I would do one additional thing. I would reinforce my staying power with my sphere. This means continuing to show up with the latest news as a real estate expert rather than a real estate salesperson. People are going to remember and notice that difference. Your competition is thinning too. There has never been a better time to capture market share. And if you need help with that, if you want to finally build out your community and make sure that your messaging to them is dialed in, I'm your girl.